Hare Krishna. Welcome to Krishna Book Part 2, class number 8. We're going to be starting with chapter 45. Krishna just killed Kamsa, and now his Mathura pastimes are going to take off in full force, and we'll see where that takes us. And we'll start with your time.
Okay, so coming into comfortable seat, invite in some movement, roll your shoulders, your neck, your jaw. Maybe tuck and untuck your pelvis, circle your hips, until you can find a seat of inner dignity. We call out in gratitude and humility, with receptivity, and to all of our teachers to receive their knowledge, the light of knowledge that removes the darkness of ignorance. Take a deep breath in, fill up. It's clearing breath out. Sip it in. Shri Shri Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki, Shri Shri Gaurav Nitai ki, Shri Shri Radha Govinda ki, Harinam Sankirtan ki, Ram Bhakti Sangha and beyond ki, Shastra Study Group ki, Hari Hari Bol.
Om Jnana-timirandhasya Jnananjana-shlakaya Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyeva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare 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 Krishna. All right, Kamsa's dead. Krishna book's not over. So what are some reflections? Actually, before we start, we had a nice question in the chat, WhatsApp. Pam was asking. And I think, because Pam didn't catch all the previous recordings and what we've been talking about and what's been coming up in the Krishna book. So she was kind of just jumping in, which is great, totally great. And yet here's Krishna, Supreme Personality of Godhead, the All-Merciful, like cutting people's heads off and like killing elephants and slaying wrestlers, and now killing Kamsa. Okay, well, Kamsa kind of had it coming, but what's with all the bloody carnage? So a little bit of context, because otherwise, I mean, it's always really valuable, but otherwise there could be misunderstandings. Krishna is a source. He's a source of everybody and everything. And there's no duality in him, right? He's not entering the material world and operating under the laws of material nature, because the laws of material nature come from him. And so it's understood in Shastra, it's actually well established that when any expansion of Krishna comes, any form of Godhead, when anybody is killed by them or even dies in the presence of them, they're liberated. However, when Krishna kills anybody, they're not just liberated with like what's called Sayuja Mukti, merging into the impersonal Brahman. He gives them personal liberation. So he did that from the very, his very infancy, when the first demon he killed, second demon he killed actually, the demon Putana, she came to kill him and he ended her life. He drank her milk, but he also sucked out all her life air. And she died, but he gave her a spiritual body as a mother, as like a nursemaid or someone in that Vatsalya mood of motherhood, parental love. And she had no qualification at all to have any love for him. But nevertheless, that's his special mercy. So Krishna is above and beyond even what any expansion, Vishnu or Balaram or Sringadev offers. And so what we're seeing here is he's reciprocating with his parts and parcels, these living entities who are just part and parcel of himself. There's a florist wants to do some service. There's a washerman doesn't want to do some service. One way or another, whether they're inclined to do service, he meets them on that level, or they're not, he meets them on that level. They're apparently a friend and apparently an enemy. But for Krishna, there's no friends and no enemies, because he's the actual center of everything and all of reality. Everyone is eternally connected to him, so he's not actually playing favorites. But somebody who has real, actual love for him, they get, you can say, even special benefit, because the kind of pastimes that his friends and his girlfriends and parents have, you don't get just by like what Kamsa did, meditating on Krishna with aversion. But when we're seeing the surface level, Krishna's coming and he's doing different kinds of things. He's got some romantic pastimes and he's got some like, superhero pastimes where he's killing some people and other things. They're all on the same level actually. They're not different. They're all absolute. Like Krishna doing all these things is on the same level as is coming onto the battlefield of Kurukshetra with Arjuna and delivering the Bhagavad Gita. They're all absolute. It's the meaning of all good. He's not a relative figure. So there's no other example of that. There's no person that can perform in that way except for the Lord. So it does take not looking at it with material vision, but that's a little bit of the context. And since it was asked and it's an important question, we're not worshiping a bloodthirsty murderer. We're worshiping the Supreme who's receiving parts and parcels of himself and reciprocating according to his own sweet will, really. And hope that helps, Pam. And if you want more information, that's why all the Krishna book recordings are there on YouTube. Go back and check them out, especially yeah, I need the last 4 would do it, I think. And with that, let's jump into more reflections. Anything that stood out from Krishna's killing Kamsa, the playing he was doing. He was, after killing the wrestlers, he brought his friends on stage and lost to them in a little mock wrestling match just to tease Kamsa. Like, who are you sending to fight me? These guys are so weak that look, I'm such a weak little boy. I'm losing to these little cowherd boys from Vrindavan. You obviously sent someone who's not a match at all. Just teasing behavior, and then he kills Kamsa. He demonstrates that he's dead for everyone, for his parents especially, who were worried about him. And what stood out for you? There's a lot of nice reflections in the WhatsApp. Let's reflect them in this forum.
I was thinking about how we talked about how Krishna responds to the bhakti of his devotees, not the externals, and how also the explanation you just gave again also speaks to that, right? It's like there was like envy or hatred or these different anartas present within the demons to like, a larger degree than the anartas are present within us because we have those, right? But that he responded to that level of like internal violence with like an external appearance of violence.
Yeah.
But then the way that he is in relationship with the gopis and the cowherd boys and his parents and the cows, like, in Vrindavan and those earlier pastimes, it's like their internal state is also the way that he externally like matches them.
Yeah. So for those who are not lined up, they're not in harmony of purpose with Krishna, there's a way in which they have to be purified of that by his touch. So they're leaving that contaminated existence. He's freeing them of that contaminated existence of like being dominated by whatever their particular false ego is, purifying them of that and sending them into a next purified existence. That's liberation. In this case, personal liberation. He's even giving them service in their next phase of being. However, the devotees, the pure devotees, like in Vrindavan or Mathura, there's no purification required. It's not like there is a way in which, okay, out of his own sweet will, he'll promote them to the spiritual world by ending that contaminated existence. They're already in the spiritual world, because for them, they're existing in the relationship with Krishna. That is the spiritual world. That's the spiritual energy of the constant give and take back and forth, the free exchange of love between Krishna and his part and parcels that are actually already completely liberated. So what we're seeing with like the parents and friends and lovers, servants of Krishna, and even the animals and so forth, Vrindavan, is the play of the spiritual world, but taking place in a context where sometimes some of the people around them have mixed motivation.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And then this also applies to us, that Krishna responds to the bhakti within us, not the externals of what we have, but like our sincerity and our devotion and our desire to serve and our desire to connect to him.
It's a good thing too.
It's a relationship.
Yeah. The material is insignificant. The material situation, it's insignificant from his perspective. Like for him, it's gone just like that if he wants it to be gone. The devotee's sincere desire to serve is what he reciprocates with. So if you got nothing else, even if you can't serve, just want to serve. And that'll attract him. Thank you.
Yeah.
More reflections, things you heard so far. Gotta have at least one more. Nancy.
Yeah, those pregnant pauses never always get me. What I heard was Krishna always shows up for us the way we need him to show up. And Kamsa certainly needed him to match that sort of negative energy. And I also started wondering whether all of this was part of Krishna's Leela. Krishna came to this world for a reason, to sort of to come and realign Dharma when things are completely screwed up. And don't know whether killing of Kamsa was sort of a lesson to those who are thinking evil thoughts, or because, just being in his presence there in Mathura, does that mean that everyone there would be liberated, or could it be also that the example will say, okay, now I see, and I can devote myself to something different? I don't know whether I made sense on that.
Yeah, well, we can say with 100% certainty that killing Kamsa is part of Krishna's mission.
Yeah.
Kamsa is you have like your small potatoes. Kamsa is a big potato. He's a big deal. In the field of demons, he's got a PhD in demonology. He's a real crackpot. He's really nuts, and he's got a lot of power. And Krishna goes out of his way for him, and a select few like him. As you pointed out, that's part of his expressed purpose for appearing. He says so in the Bhagavad Gita too. Yada hidahi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhyutanam adharmasya tadat manam srijamyaham. I appear again and again, in age after age, to reestablish Dharma, to purify irreligion. I appear in my own spiritual form. So that's there. And I think the essence of your comment or question, the second part of like, does Krishna like deter others from doing wrong, is that if you look at it, we're 5,000 years removed from the activities of this book, and it's still giving great guidance and support.
Right.
So definitely, because Krishna is an absolute person, his activities echo in a way that even the activities of, no matter how great you are, a man or woman, a material person cannot match that. Krishna is actually, whatever lessons are there, whatever activity was performed, they're actually being invoked again by hearing them and by chanting them. This recitation is actually invoking the reality of those events once more. So it's as if we're present. When you read Bhagavad Gita, you're on the battlefield of Kurukshetra with the two of them. When you read Krishna book, you're there in Vrindavan, or you're there in Mathura. It's like, it's actually real. You actually get to experience the realness of those lessons. And so that's why there are so many realizations and things that come up, because you're also such sincere devotees. There's so many practical reflections of, wow, I'm seeing this and I'm seeing that. And that's Krishna. That's Krishna there, purifying and offering guidance and reflecting what's needed still. So definitely. Tanya.
Yeah, one of the things that the whole time we've been reading this, since Krishna appeared and was birthed, or even before that, like all the terrible things that Kamsa has done, to kill all those babies and do all these things and send all the demons, and like the whole time I've been reading it, I'm like, dude, why do you keep doing this? You're gonna lose. Like it's just been really interesting to watch all of this the whole time, but it's an excellent lesson in those defects, those things that we as conditioned souls, suffer from. We suffer from delusion, we suffer from making mistakes, and we suffer from our senses being imperfect, and we put ourselves in the center, and we get delusional, and we think that we're everything. And he seriously did, I guess, consider himself able to cheat the system and cheat what he knew was coming, which at some level was just, fascinating to watch. But I also can, relate to people that are like that in everyday world, just,
Yeah.
think that they're the center, no matter what's going on around them. And I absolutely loved, I had to reread it a couple times, but I just loved the message because I kept thinking about, all of this is Krishna's energy, all of this, the good and the evil bits and the whole lesson. And I loved the succinct little phrase in near the end of the chapter that said, one who neglects his authority can never be happy. And
Yeah.
that's like a mic drop moment,
It's just not going to work out. The
Right.
illusion. Yeah. And it can seem, we can be almost incredulous. How could Kamsa convince himself that he was ever going to win this self-imposed challenge of, living forever in this way? And it seems crazy, but it is basically, material illusion is a kind of craziness. And if you look around, we look at ourselves, first of all, basically, people do all kinds of things on the assumption of, well, it's all important to protect this body because I am this body. And that's illusion number one, because we're not. We're manifestly not. It doesn't even take a pure devotee to understand we're not the body, because we can observe the body. We're the one observing it, We
Right.
say my hand, not I hand, etc. So there's an all-pervading and very convincing illusion there, and people operate in it all the time. And all Kamsa is really just exaggerated. He's that cranked up to 11. He's very, very committed. And he's got enough power and enough commitment to really stand out. Like we said, big potato. The rest of
Right.
us small fries we're really operating in our conditioned state under the same basic kinds of things. It is kind of crazy. Yeah. We have a hand. Thank you. Pam, go ahead.
Hi, thank you. So in my confusion and trying to make sense of everything the last couple days, I went back and went through some of my notes. And a few chapters back, I found the note that said Kamsa represents the false ego. I thought, okay, now maybe that makes more sense to me, because here's this guy whose sister got married and something says to him, her child's going to come and kill you. And that's one of the things I think if I'm understanding it right, that devotion to Krishna is to get rid of our false ego. So that kind of helped put it together a little bit for me, that yes, Krishna was here to help destroy the false ego, and believing or being devoted will help us to do that.
Yeah,
Does that
as
make
always,
sense?
in Krishna's pastimes, there's the events actually took place. They're literally true, and there's also often great symbolic value. So yeah, Kamsa. In fact, if you read Krishna book chapter like 2 and 3, maybe 1, 2, and 3. I think especially 1 and 3. Prabhupada talks about this because it comes up that yeah, the role of the way that we can view Kamsa as a uncontrolled false ego. And there's a number of layers of the analogy that are given in the Bhagavatam. For example, Devaki has her 6 sons killed before Krishna, and that represents, if I'm remembering correctly, it represents the devotee being purified of because they're the 6 rebirth sons of Kalanimi. There's a whole backstory to who they are. Yeah, the 6 aren't consistent. No, they're actually taking birth again. They're representing. It came up in the commentaries there a few classes ago. We actually talked about it briefly. They're representing the lust, anger, greed, illusion, madness, envy. The 6 things that we can fall prey to. And our acharyas have pointed out that that's also one level of understanding, that by being purified of those, now she's ready to give birth to Krishna. She's actually, the heart is purified. She can deliver him. She can actually be able to carry him in her heart. So although she's actually a literal person who's an eternal servant of Krishna, she's also operating on the analogical, as an analog or analogy level. So Kamsa does that as well. He's basically like the stand-in for the bad wolf. Isn't that the so there are two dogs inside of you, the good dog and the bad dog.
Mhm.
He's the bad dog. He's the false ego. So yeah, you're right.
Glacius.
Hmm?
Glacius.
The 6 kleshas, the 6 faults: lust, anger, greed, illusion, madness, envy. Yeah. Yes.
I was also gonna say, like, we've been, again, been meditating on death quite a bit for some reason, and I feel like, Kamsa throughout all of this is trying to cheat death.
He's trying to cheat death.
And when we look at ourselves, we're also all trying to cheat death. I mean, like, if we know we're gonna die, but if we knew when we were gonna die, we'd be like, okay, I'm all in now. Like, I'm all in. Like, take me now, Krishna. Everything I do is yours. But we're cheating death too, and not necessarily be the extreme of Kamsa and doing like all these really horrific things. But it is just really humbling to like meditate on that and think about the fact that, like, I got a little Kamsa in us, and it's it's like, Krishna, help me get it out of me.
Yeah.
Mhm.
All the more reason to read and hear the Krishna book. Because we all got a little Kamsa in us. We also all got a little, Vrindavan in us. So, especially the more we hear this. Jai. Let's recite the Krishna book invocation. And could I have a glass of water, please? Thank you so much. Krishna, 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 Hey. Krishna, 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 Hey. Krishna, 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 Rakshama. Krishna, 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 Pahima. Rama Raghava, Rama Raghava, Rama Raghava, Rakshama. Krishna Keshava, Krishna Keshava, Krishna Keshava, Pahima. Jai Krishna book, chapter 45. Krishna recovers the son of his teacher. When Lord Krishna saw Vasudeva and Devaki standing in a reverential attitude, he immediately expanded his influence of Yogamaya, so that they could treat him and Balaram as children. As in the material world, the relationship existing between father and mother and children can be established amongst different living entities by the influence of the illusory energy, so by the influence of Yogamaya, the devotee can establish a relationship in which the Supreme Personality of Godhead is his child. After creating this situation by his Yogamaya, Krishna, appearing with his elder brother, Balaram, as the most illustrious son in the dynasty of the Sattvatas, very submissively and respectfully addressed Vasudeva and Devaki. Quote, "My dear father and mother, although you have always been anxious for the protection of our lives, you could not enjoy the pleasure of having us as your babies, as your growing boys, and as your adolescent youths." Krishna indirectly praised the fatherhood of Nanda Maharaj and motherhood of Yashoda as most glorious, because although he and Balaram were not their born sons, Nanda and Yashoda actually enjoyed their childhood pastimes. By nature's own arrangement, the childhood of the embodied living being is enjoyed by his parents. Even in the animal kingdom, parents are found to be affectionate to their cubs. Being captivated by the activities of their offspring, they take much care for their well-being. As for Vasudeva and Devaki, they were always anxious for the protection of their sons, Krishna and Balaram. That is why Krishna, after his appearance, was immediately transferred to another's house. Balaram was also transferred from Devaki's womb to Rohini's womb. Vasudeva and Devaki were full of anxieties for Krishna's and Balaram's protection, but they could not enjoy their childhood pastimes. Krishna said, "Unfortunately, being ordered by our fate, we could not be raised by our own parents to enjoy childhood pleasures at home. My dear father and mother, a man cannot repay his debt to his parents, from whom he gets this body, which can bestow upon him all the benefits of material existence. According to the Vedic injunctions, this human form of life enables one to perform all kinds of religious activities, fulfill all kinds of desires, and acquire all kinds of wealth. And only in this human form is there every possibility that one can get liberation from material existence. This body is produced by the combined efforts of the father and mother. Every human being should be obliged to his parents and understand that he cannot repay his debt to them. If after growing up a son does not try to satisfy his parents by his actions or by an endowment of riches, he is surely punished after death by the superintendent of death and made to eat his own flesh. If a person is able to care for or give protection to old parents, a chaste wife, children, the spiritual master, brahmanas, and other dependents, but does not do so, he is considered already dead, although he is supposedly breathing. My dear father and mother, you have always been anxious for our protection, but unfortunately, we could not render any service unto you. Until now, we have simply wasted our time. Due to reasons beyond our control, we could not serve you. Mother and Father, please excuse us for our sinfulness. When the Supreme Personality of Godhead was speaking as an innocent boy in very sweet words, Vasudeva and Devaki became captivated by parental affection and embraced him with great pleasure. They were amazed and could not speak or answer the words of Krishna, but simply embraced him and Balaram in great affection and remained silent, shedding incessant tears. We see Krishna's deep humility here. I could never reciprocate with you. Please forgive me. We also see the emphasis here on appreciation of family, and Krishna almost kind of glorifying material existence, because there's a lot in the philosophy about how this is not our real home. We don't actually belong here. We're spiritual beings having material experience. But we see here, Krishna says, from the parents, one can get this body, which can bestow upon them all the benefits of material existence. Interesting, right? Krishna is apparently glorifying material existence. Now, thank you. So, one of the meanings of Maya means illusion, primarily, like the illusion, like Kamsa's Maya, Kamsa's idea that he is going to live forever, though he's the body. One of the alternate meanings of Maya, Sanskrit is a rich language, is mercy, actually, because it's Maya that we're embodied in a material body that has a beginning and an end, and we have all these ideas and illusions. That's illusion, right? That's Maya, but it's also mercy. Why is it mercy? Because we wanted it. On some level, we wanted to have a separate, at least to believe we're separate from Krishna. We're not actually ever separate from him. We're in his little sandbox somewhere. But to have like the blinders on, I don't see him. I can't hear you. That whole childish, we're having a childish fit, pretending we're separate from Krishna. And so it's Maya to be granted that. It's Maya to have, it's mercy to have the capacity to even do that, and to have the capacity to seek out all the different material benedictions that are there. And then ultimately, as he says, and only in this human form is there every possibility that one can get liberation from material existence. That's the ultimate mercy, to wake up from the dream. So when we see Krishna apparently glorifying material nature, material life here, that's the context, is that but in Bhakti Yoga, we're not ungrateful for the gifts of Maya, but we understand ultimately that we want to wake up. We don't want to keep playing in the Matrix. Have you ever seen that movie? We don't want to have like a fake existence, swallowing. Which one is it? The red pill? The fake existence pill?
What's the red and the blue?
Anyway, that movie's replete with Krishna conscious analogies.
Mm-hmm.
We want to wake up, and that's the real mercy of Maya. No more, the second, third prize. We want the real gift. Thus, having consoled his father and mother, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, appearing as the beloved son of Devaki, approached his grandfather Ugrasena and announced that Ugrasena would now be the king of the Yadu kingdom. Kamsa had been forcibly ruling the kingdom of Yadu in spite of the presence of his father. That's Ugrasena, his father. If you remember, when Kamsa had his maniacal breakdown at the end, when Krishna killed the wrestlers, Kamsa freaked out and he said, "That's it, kill Devaki, kill Vasudev, kill my own father. They've all been against me." So he was even about to kill his own father. Ugrasena is not like his son. He's actually a good guy. And so Krishna's reinstalling him. But after the death of Kamsa, his father was released and announced to be the monarch of the Yadu kingdom. It appears that in those days, in the western part of India, there were many small kingdoms ruled by the Yadu dynasty, Antaka dynasty, Vrishni dynasty, and Bhoja dynasty. Maharaj Ugrasena belonged to the Bhoja dynasty. Therefore, Krishna indirectly declared that the king of the Bhoja dynasty would be the emperor of the other small kingdoms. Krishna willingly asked Maharaj Ugrasena to rule over himself and Balaram because they were his subjects. The word praja is used both for progeny, where the word praja is actually the root for that word, progeny, used for both progeny and for citizens. So Krishna belonged to the praja, both as a grandson of Maharaj Ugrasena's and as a member of the Yadu dynasty. Thus, he voluntarily accepted the rule of Maharaj Ugrasena. He informed Ugrasena, "Being cursed by Yayati, the kings of the Yadu dynasty may not occupy the throne. It will be our pleasure to act as your servants. My full cooperation with you will make your position more exalted and secure. so that the kings of other dynasties will not hesitate to pay their respective revenues. Protected by me, you will be honored even by the demigods from the heavenly planets. My dear grandfather, out of fear of my late uncle Kamsa, all the kings belonging to the Yadu, Vrishni, Antika, Madhu, Dasharha, and Kukura dynasties were very anxious and disturbed. Now you can pacify them all and give them assurance of security. The whole kingdom will be peaceful. All the kings in the neighboring area had left their homes in fear of Kamsa and were living in distant parts of the country. Now, after the death of Kamsa and the reinstallment of Ugrasena as king, the neighboring kings were given all kinds of presentations and comforts. Then they returned to their respective homes. After this nice political arrangement, the citizens of Mathura were pleased to live in Mathura, being protected by the strong arms of Krishna and Balaram. On account of good government in the presence of Krishna and Balaram, the inhabitants of Mathura felt complete satisfaction in the fulfillment of all their material desires and necessities, and because they saw Krishna and Balaram daily, face to face, they soon forgot all material miseries completely. Here's another example of Krishna consciousness offering the ultimate spiritual benefit, but also some material benefits along the way. If you live in Krishna consciousness, you can actually have a materially very satisfying existence. It's not like you're gritting your teeth and like, I can't wait for this thing to be over. I can go back to Godhead. You can actually have a fair amount of enjoyment in the world without getting swept away by the illusion of it all. Live nicely, comfortably, and then go back to Krishna. As soon as they saw Krishna and Balaram coming out on the street, very nicely dressed and smiling and looking at the citizens with grace, the citizens were immediately filled with loving ecstasies simply by seeing the personal presence of Mukunda. The name Mukunda refers to one who can award liberation and transcendental bliss. Remember that came up? There was a section where Krishna was getting named by different names, and one of them was Mukunda because it was calling on his aspect of giving liberation. One who can award liberation and transcendental bliss. Krishna's presence acted as such a vitalizing tonic that not only the younger generation, but even the old men of Mathura became fully invigorated with youthful energy and strength by regularly seeing him. Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda were also living in Mathura because Krishna and Balaram were there. But after some time, they wanted to go back to Vrindavana. Krishna and Balaram went before Nanda and Yashoda and very affectionately embraced them. And then the two lords spoke as follows: Dear father and mother, although we were born of Vasudeva and Devaki, you have been our real father and mother. Because from our very birth and childhood, you raised us with great affection and love. Your affectionate love for us was more than anyone can offer one's own children. You were actually our father and mother because you raised us as your own children when we were just like orphans. For certain reasons, we were rejected by our father and mother, and you protected us. Dear father and mother, we know that you will feel separation upon returning to Vrindavana and leaving us here, but please, rest assured that we shall come back to Vrindavan. Just after giving some satisfaction to our real father and mother, Vasudeva and Devaki, and our grandfather and other family members. Krishna and Balaram thus satisfied Nanda and Yashoda by sweet words and by presentations of various kinds of clothing, ornaments, and copper utensils. They satisfied him along with their friends and neighbors who had come with them from Vrindavana to Mathura as fully as possible. On account of excessive parental affection for Balaram and Krishna, Nanda Maharaj felt tears in his eyes and he embraced them and started with the cowherd men for Vrindavana. So if you notice here, Krishna actually gives a promise. Long before Arnold Schwarzenegger ever said it, he says, I'll be back. I'll be back. And the residents of Vrindavan are banking on it. So they're living in separation from Krishna, pining because he said he's going to be back. So they go back, Nanda and Yashoda, and we're going to get a chance to revisit them a little bit. But for now, Krishna is, as he said, going to give his attention to his birth parents and their family, and he feels obligation there. And also he has continuing obligation to defeat the demoniac elements, those who are acting as a burden on the planet. And part of Krishna's thinking and not going back to Vrindavan right now is that there are going to be so many elements like Kamsa, people with armies, military forces. And if I'm there, wherever I'm at, they're going to come there. And better not to be in Vrindavan with young girls and boys and cows, and they can't handle that. The place will be trampled and destroyed and people will die. Better I protect them from it. And so he's going to take up a bit of a different chapter in his life. After this, Vasudeva had his sons initiated by sacred thread as the token of second birth, which is essential for the higher castes of society, human society. Vasudeva called for his family priest and learned brahmanas, and the sacred thread ceremony of Krishna and Balaram was duly performed. During this ceremony, Vasudeva gave various ornaments in charity to the brahmanas and endowed them with cows decorated with silken cloths and golden ornaments. Then Vasudeva remembered the cows he had wanted to give in charity to the Brahmins after the birth of Krishna and Balaram, but being imprisoned by Kamsa at that time, Vasudeva had only been able to do so within his mind, for Kamsa had stolen all his cows. With the death of Kamsa, his cows were released, and now Vasudeva gave the actual cows to the Brahmins. If you make a promise in your mind, you should try to do it in the external world too, if the possibility comes. It's like Prabhupada would talk about this section where Vasudeva was thinking, I want to offer all these cows in charity to the Brahmins to celebrate the birth of my boy Krishna, because that's all he could do, because he was shackled up in jail, in Kamsa's jail. He couldn't do anything else. And so Prabhupada would talk about, well, you can offer whatever opulent offering you can offer to Krishna in your mind, even if you're a poor person and you can't afford to make like a big meal or something. You can make the most wonderful meal in your mind and offer to Krishna. And then Prabhupada would say, but that doesn't mean you should just do it in your mind. If you can't afford to do something, then do it. Do it with your money too. Do it with your hands. Do it with your time, because they're all different instruments as much as the mind. So, don't just kick your feet back and be like, well, I offer Krishna the entire universe in my mind, so I'm going to sit here and forget about devotional service for the rest of my life, because I've already ticked that box. Then Balaram and Krishna were duly initiated with the sacred thread ceremony, and they repeated the chanting of the Gayatri mantra. The Gayatri mantra is offered to disciples after the sacred thread ceremony, and Balaram and Krishna properly discharged the duties of chanting this mantra. Anyone who executes the chanting of this mantra has to abide by certain principles and vows. Although Balaram and Krishna are transcendental personalities, they strictly follow the regulated principles. They were initiated by their family priest, Garga Acharya, usually known as Garga Muni, the Acharya of the Yadu dynasty. According to Vedic culture, every respectable family has an Acharya, or spiritual master. One is not considered a perfectly cultured man without being initiated and trained by an Acharya. It is said, therefore, that one who has approached an Acharya is actually in perfect knowledge. Lord Krishna and Lord Balaram are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the master of all education and knowledge. There was no need for them to accept a spiritual master, or Acharya. Yet, for the instruction of ordinary men, they also accepted a spiritual master for advancement in spiritual knowledge. Krishna talks about this in chapter 3 Bhagavad Gita. I have no duty, nor is anything required from me. However, in order to leave an example for others, even I perform duties. Because if I didn't, he says, people would learn from that example and things would go sideways. Generally, Krishna sets a good example. It is customary, after being initiated in the Gayatri Mantra, for one to live away from home for some time, under the care of the Acharya, to be trained in spiritual life. During this period, one has to work under the spiritual master as an ordinary menial servant. There are many rules and regulations for a brahmachari. Living under the care of an acharya, it's like a student monk. Young boys would typically have this training. Living under the care of an acharya, and Krishna and Balaram strictly followed those regulated principles while living under the instruction of their spiritual master, Sandipani Muni, who was a resident of Avantipura in the northern Indian district of Ujjain. According to scriptural injunctions, a spiritual master should be respected and regarded on an equal level with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Krishna and Balaram exactly followed those principles with great devotion and underwent the regulations of Brahmacharya. Thus they satisfied their spiritual master, who instructed them in Vedic knowledge. Being very satisfied, Sandipani Muni instructed them in all the intricacies of Vedic wisdom. and in supplementary literatures such as the Upanishads. Because Krishna and Balarama happened to be Kshatriyas, they were specifically trained in military science, politics, and ethics. Politics includes such departments of knowledge as how to make peace, how to fight, how to pacify, how to divide and rule, and how to give shelter. All these items were fully explained and instructed to Krishna and Balarama. The ocean is the source of water in a river. The cloud is created by the evaporation of ocean water, and the same water is distributed as rain all over the surface of the earth, and then returns to the ocean in rivers. So Krishna and Balarama, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, are the source of all knowledge. But because they were playing like ordinary human boys, they set the example so that everyone would receive knowledge from the right source. Thus, they agreed to take knowledge from a spiritual master.
So there's two people here. So there's Sandapani Muni and then there's Garga Muni. The Sandapani Muni just kind of got slipped in there. So family priest was Gargacharya. Where did Sandapani Muni come from?
So, yeah, Gargacharya, he's like the family priest. He gave them the Gayatri mantras and the thread. And then Krishna and Balaram went to live at the ashrama of Sandipani Muni.
Okay, so
They left.
different.
Yeah,
So that
they went
was
to boarding
their
school.
Initiation, and then they went to another place with a different teacher.
They went to the boarding school with their other guru. The Diksha Guru, the guru who gives you your name, accepts your vows, accepts your karma. That's one person. There's only one Diksha Guru, but you can have multiple Shiksha Gurus, instructing gurus. As long as they're in the same mood as your Diksha Guru, there can be multiple. For example, we're all taking Shiksha, guidance, instruction, from Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada is not on the planet anymore to give Diksha. He's not going to initiate one. However, he is giving critical Shiksha to everybody. So Krishna took initiation, although he doesn't have to, he's God. And now he's taking instruction, growing up as a young boy, to live like in boarding school, to learn spiritual truths and some material things too, to set an example. After hearing only once from their teacher, Krishna and Balaram learned all the arts and sciences. In 64 days and 64 nights, they learned all the necessary arts and sciences required in human society. During the daytime, they took lessons on a subject from the teacher, and by nightfall, they were expert in that department of knowledge. This is a really fun section. First of all, they learned how to sing, how to compose songs, and how to recognize the different tunes. They learned the unfavorable and favorable accents and meters, how to sing different kinds of rhythms and melodies, and how to follow them by beating different kinds of drums. So melody, rhythm, harmony. They learned how to dance to the rhythm of melody in different songs. They learned how to write dramas. And they learned the various types of painting, from simple village arts up to the highest perfectional stage. They also learned how to paint tilaka on the face by making different kinds of dots on the forehead and cheeks. Then they learned the art of making paintings on the floor with a liquid paste of rice and flour. Such paintings are very popular at auspicious ceremonies performed at household affairs or in the temple. They learned how to make a resting place with flowers and how to decorate clothing and limbs with colorful paintings. They also learned how to set valuable jewels and ornaments. They learned the art of wringing water pots. Water pots are filled with water to a certain measurement so that as one beats on the pots, different tones are produced. And when the pots are beaten together, they produce a melodious sound. They also learned how to splash water in the rivers or lakes while taking a bath among friends. They learned how to decorate with flowers. This art of decorating can still be seen in various temples of Vrindavana during the summer season. It's called Pullabadi. The dais, that's what we said, right? Dais?
Yeah.
Dais, the throne, the walls, and the ceiling are all fully decorated, and a small aromatic fountain of flowers is fixed in the center. Because of these floral decorations, the people, fatigued from the heat of the sun, become refreshed. Notice how many of these are very aesthetic. These are very aesthetically refined things that Krishna is learning. There's a lot of things he doesn't learn here, and a lot of things he would never have guessed that he does learn. This is a very refined culture. We can see, like, even like classical Greece and Rome, it was considered appropriate for a young man or woman girl or boy who's coming from a good family to be trained in music. Whether or not they become a musician is not important. They have to know basic music. They have to have an ear. They have to have oratory skills. They have to know how to speak, how to pace their speaking, how to breathe properly, how to hold an audience, how to evoke sentiment with their words. These are things that we practically have lost a couple of thousand years later, just from, classical Greece, what to speak of this very refined culture here. So a lot of these are very aesthetic things. Krishna is like a very refined musician and artist now, among so many other things. And it's considered an appropriate training, even for a kshatriya, a ruler. Krishna and Balaram learned the art of dressing hair in various styles and fixing a helmet in different positions on the head. They also learned how to set up a theatrical stage, how to decorate actors with costumes and with flower ornaments over the ear, and how to sprinkle sandalwood pulp and water to produce a nice fragrance. They also learned the art of performing magical feats. Within the magical field, there is an art called Bahurupi, by which a person dresses himself in such a way that when he approaches a friend, he cannot be recognized. Krishna and Balarama also learned how to make various syrups and beverages required at various times, having various tastes and intoxicating effects. They also learned different types of sewing and embroidery work, as well as how to manipulate thin threads for dancing puppets. This art included how to string wires on musical instruments, such as the veena, sitar, esaraj, and tambura, to produce melodious sounds. Then they learned how to make and solve riddles. They learned the art of how even a dull student can very quickly learn the alphabet and read books. Then they learned how to rehearse and act out a drama. They also studied the art of solving crossword puzzles, filling up the missing spaces and making complete words. They also learned how to draw and read pictographic literature. In some countries in the world, pictographic literature is still current. For example, the Chinese language is pictographic. A story is represented by pictures. For instance, a man and house are pictured to represent a man going home. Krishna and Balaram also learned the art of architecture, how to construct residential buildings. They learned to recognize valuable jewels by studying their luster and colors. Then, they learned the art of placing jewels in a gold and silver setting so that they look very beautiful. They also learned how to study soil to find minerals. This study of soil is now a greatly specialized science, but formerly it was common knowledge even for the ordinary man. They learned to study herbs and plants and to discover how they would act as medicine for different ailments. By studying the different species of plants, they learned how to crossbreed plants and trees and get different types of fruits. They learned how to train and engage rams and cocks in fighting for sport. Clearly that wouldn't have been done to the death. That must be some other context there. This is a very refined culture, and they're all pacifists, so must be like having pets. They then learn how to teach parrots to speak and to answer the questions of human beings. They learn practical psychology, how to influence another's mind, and thus induce another to act according to one's own desire. Sometimes this is called hypnotism. They learn how to wash hair, dye it different colors, and curl it in different ways. They learn the art of telling what is written in someone's book without actually seeing it. They learn to tell what is contained in another's fist. Sometimes children imitate this art, though not very accurately. One child keeps something within his fist and asks his friend, "Can you tell what is within?" And the friend gives some suggestion, although he actually cannot tell. But there is an art by which one can understand and actually tell what is held within the fist. Wow. Krishna and Balaram learned how to speak and understand the languages of various countries. Not only did they learn the languages of human beings, Krishna could also speak even with animals and birds. Evidence of this is found in the Vaishnava literature compiled by the Goswamis. Then they learned how to make carriages and airplanes from flowers. It is said in the Ramayana that after defeating Ravana, Ramachandra was carried from Lanka to Bharatavarsha on a plane of flowers, called the Pushparatha. Krishna and Balaram then learned the art of foretelling events by seeing signs. In a book called Kannada Vachana, the various types of signs and omens are described. If, when one is going out, one sees someone with a bucket full of water, that is a very good sign. But if one sees someone with an empty bucket, it is not a good sign. Similarly, if one sees a cow being milked alongside its calf, it is a good sign. The result of understanding these signs is that one can foretell events. And Krishna and Balaram learned the science. They also learned the art of composing matrika, A matrika is like a crossword box with 3 numbers in each row. If one adds any 3 from any side, it will come to 9. The matrikas are of different kinds and for different purposes. Krishna and Balaram learned the art of cutting valuable stones, such as diamonds. And they also learned the art of questioning and answering by immediately composing poetry within the mind. They learned the science of the action and reaction of physical combinations and permutations. They learned the art of a psychiatrist who can understand the psychic movements of another person. They learned how to satisfy one's desires. Desires are very difficult to fulfill, but if one desires something which is unreasonable and can never be fulfilled, the desire can be subdued and satisfied, and that is an art. By this art, one can also subdue sex impulses when they are aroused, as they are even in brahmachari life, celibate monk life. By this art, one can make even an enemy one's friend, or transfer the direct action of a physical element to other things. So some of these are apparently quite mundane, and some of them are so subtle that we don't even have the faintest idea of how to have an education in these things anymore. Lord Krishna and Balaram, the reservoir of all knowledge, exhibited their perfect understanding of all the arts and sciences mentioned above. Then, they offered to serve their teacher by awarding him anything he desired. This offering by the student to the teacher or spiritual master is called Guru Dakshina. It is essential that a student satisfy the teacher in return for any learning received, either material or spiritual. The old custom of bring an apple for your teacher. It's just culture. Like it's the culture thing to do. Appreciation for anyone who teaches you anything. You should offer some service. When Krishna and Balaram offered their service in this way, the teacher, Sandipani Muni, thought it wise to ask them for something extraordinary, something no common student could offer. He therefore consulted with his wife about what to ask from them. He and his wife had already seen the extraordinary potencies of Krishna and Balaram, and could understand that the 2 boys were the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They decided to ask for the return of their son, who had drowned in the ocean near the shore at Prabhasa Kshetra. When Krishna and Balaram heard from their teacher about the death of his son, they immediately started for Prabhasa Kshetra on their chariot. Reaching the beach, they asked the controlling deity of the ocean to return the son of their teacher. The ocean deity immediately appeared before the Lord and offered him all respectful obeisances with great humility. The Lord said, "Some time back, you caused the drowning of the son of our teacher. I order you to return him." The ocean deity replied, "The boy was not actually taken by me, but was captured by a demon named Panchajana. This great demon generally remains deep in the water in the shape of a conch shell. The son of your teacher might be within the belly of the demon, having been devoured by him." On hearing this, Krishna dove deep into the water and caught hold of the demon Panchajana. He killed him on the spot, more liberation, but could not find the son of his teacher within his belly. Therefore he took the demon's dead body in the shape of a conch shell and returned to his chariot on the beach of Prabhas Kshetra. From there he started for Sangyamani, the residence of Yamaraj, the superintendent of death. Accompanied by his elder brother Balarama, who is also known as Halayuta, Krishna arrived there and blew on his conch shell. Hearing the vibration, Yamaraj appeared and received Sri Krishna with all respectful obeisances. Yamaraj could understand who Krishna and Balaram were, and therefore he immediately offered his humble service to the Lord. Krishna had appeared on the surface of the earth like an ordinary human being, but actually Krishna and Balaram are the supersoul, living within the heart of every living entity. They are Vishnu himself. But we're playing just like ordinary human boys. When Yamaraj offered his services to the Lord, Sri Krishna asked him to return his teacher's son, who had come to him as a result of his work. "Considering my ruling supreme," said Krishna, "you should immediately return the son of my teacher." Yamaraj returned the boy to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and Krishna and Balaram brought him to his father. The brothers asked if their teacher had anything more to ask from them, but he replied, "My dear sons, you have done enough for me. I am now completely satisfied. What further want can there be for a man who has disciples like you? My dear boys, you may now go home. These glorious acts of yours will always be renowned all over the world. You are above all blessing. It is my duty to bless you. I therefore give you the benediction that whatever you speak will remain as eternally fresh as the instructions of the Vedas. Your teachings will be honored not only within this universe or in this millennium, but in all places and ages, and will remain increasingly new and important. Due to this benediction from his teacher, Lord Krishna's Bhagavad Gita is ever increasingly fresh and is renowned not only within this universe, but in other planets and other universes also. Being ordered by their teacher, Krishna and Balaram immediately returned home on their chariot. They traveled at great speed like the wind and made sounds like the crashing of clouds. All the residents of Mathura who had not seen Krishna and Balaram for a long time were very much pleased to see them again. They felt joyful like a person who has regained his lost property. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 45th chapter of Krishna. Krishna recovers the son of his teacher. Jai. Any reflections?
So interesting that they went, they're sort of like the source of all spiritual knowledge. And then they went to like boarding school for all of the material, cultural arts and crafts and magic tricks. And
they got their spiritual lessons and their material lessons from Garga Muni and Sandipani Muni. Yeah. It's very exemplary. Sometimes, especially in today's world, you'll have people who have some charisma, who have some power, wealth. Maybe they even have a little bit of spiritual knowledge. Maybe they have some yogic power. And they're like, claim to be self-effulgent. So just like, I don't need a guru. I don't need a teacher. it just occurred to me. I'm self-realized. And Krishna's like, no, we don't have to be cheated by that. Krishna's God and he is a spiritual master. There's no need for like trying to shortcut the system. And there's no need for falling for the bluffs of cheaters and becoming one of the cheated. Spiritual knowledge is available if you actually submit yourself before one who has it, as much as material knowledge is available in the same way. And if you don't try to like game the system and find some unnatural shortcut, if you're a sincere student, then as much as Krishna did, or anyone else in history who's performed these activities of being a humble student, you can receive all the benefits of being a student of a great teacher. So we all have Srila Prabhupada and his disciples and the whole Guru Parampara, many Guru Paramparas actually of great Vaishnavas, and the system is there and it works.
it's like the original liberal arts school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's notable that
68 days.
yeah, one lesson every day they perfected.
They majored in everything.
Yeah.
And minored in
It's notable that the consequence of training is that not just that you get you're employable,
right.
they're refined gentlemen. They can hold a conversation, they can maintain relationships, they can deal with people who are senior and elder, junior and dependents, their peers. They're very refined. They have language skills, they have art skills, they have a great sense of like aesthetic. They're it's not something we so much we've lost a lot of that. Like education now is very much about becoming employable, which is part of human life, but
It's necessary.
yeah. More questions, reflections?
I think it's really interesting in the beginning of the chapter, you said that, Krishna kind of glorified the material world. And we know that, the material world is supposed to be full of misery, yet they go to boarding school and they learn all these beautiful, fine arts, the beauty of the material world. They learn how to, manipulate it and make it more beautiful and get involved in it in that way, just by perfecting all of this art. So it's a nice transition from, as Pam mentioned, the gore and craziness of the last several chapters to, the really noticing the beauty that is also part of the material world that they've learning how to master, to be those those fine, learned gentlemen that they are.
Yeah, and that's really practical because most people are not going to, they're not qualified to renounce the world and step away from it and just like focus entirely on their spiritual life. There has to be like a way in which they can do both at the same time. And that's traditional spiritual culture, is that you get trained in the fundamentals and you also become a gentleman, a lady, and you also become employable. And so then you go on like living in the world and providing for yourself and your dependents, fulfilling your material desires in a healthy way within boundaries, and progressively realizing that that never actually satisfies my heart completely anyway. But it's good I'm doing these things, keeps the world going, and practicing your spiritual life at the same time. And Krishna and Balaram, who are above the whole rigmarole themselves, are showing that this is actually how it can be. And yeah, so this is a much more relatable kind of apparently normal kind of chapter. It's not killing and wild love affairs. It's like going to school, getting some skills, learning how to sew, ringing water pots, respecting your teacher. Well, then you do dive into an ocean and, you know, save a man from already having died. But yeah, a lot of Krishna's pastimes in this section of the Krishna book, like in Mathura and Dwarka, they're more to set an example for people in the world. In Vrindavan, it's more, you know, it's not as much like people are watching and how to set it. Krishna's not really like a responsible adult in Vrindavan. He's really just doing what he feels like doing with his pure devotees. But there's a lot more of Krishna operating as, he does some really far out things too, don't get me wrong. Really wonderful, amazing things throughout, but there's more like, okay, also he's like, while he's doing that far out stuff, here he is being an exemplary husband or a father or a son or a student or, you know, a ruler, and that's necessary as well for all of us who are like not going to just live on a mountaintop somewhere and chant Hare Krishna until we leave the body. Yeah, real human civilization, real human culture has a lot of refinement and aesthetic, and it's multifaceted, and you can find something to specialize in and be good at that and do that, make that your thing while you develop your spiritual life, and it's good. We need you know, flower arrangements and musicians. We need all these things. We need all this refinement. Stacy is speaking, but or Shakti. Congratulations, by the way, to Her Grace Shakti Devi Dasi, the former Stacy. You're muted, by the way. We can't hear you.
I think she's on the phone.
Oh, okay. That would explain. Well, we congratulate her anyway. Now she's smiling. Anyone else want to? I think you had
So
Eileen.
this is a little bit more like a practical reflection. You know, like last week I talked a little bit about like how Krishna was like restoring order. And I feel like, you know, as you look at Ugrasena being installed as now like the ruler, right? Not to get super political, but it's interesting as I think about like the difference between like the separation of church and state in our modern society. And like, even though we're one nation under God, a lot of that is just like completely just like, it shouldn't be there. We shouldn't be talking about God in the material world when it pertains to politics. But here we see Ugrasena installed as, you know, the ruler, and that there is now, he's now serving his constituents, like he's there to serve them. And by Krishna being present and Balaram being present, you know, all their material miseries are completely forgotten. And so because there's good governance, you know, the inhabitants have satisfaction. So it's just an interesting commentary on like, when you take, I believe, like morality and God and the service attitude of leadership out of the equation, you have misery and chaos and disorder. And when you see Krishna establishing back again, building back what should have, you know, how government should lead, you know, it's just interesting to see kind of how it's juxtaposed against what, you know, our modern society talks about as far as government.
Yeah, we've thrown the baby out with the bathwater. There's a lot of reasons why church and state are separated for good reasons, but the way we've done it, we've actually taken away the basic morality and a sense of service attitude. And I mean, there's a non-sectarian way in which all spiritual traditions are talking about being of service and basic moral principles are, I mean, not up for debate. They're just like really practical things: respect for life, for dignity of a human being and non-humans as well. And if we create like an abstraction around rulership, then I mean, not to get too political, but we're basically ruled by a bunch of market forces right now, like unregulated market forces or barely regulated. It's like would-be Vaishyas who aren't regulated by Kshatriyas. Like the whole thing is just upside down. There's no dharmic Brahmin people at the top, whether you want to call them Vedic or any other tradition. There's no actual wisdom leadership. It's just very dollar figures. So yeah, it's a nice reminder of how things could be when dharma is the nature of things. There's no satisfaction when your ruling class is actually adharmic. Not even for them. It may seem like, oh, if I just had power, I could really finally be happy, but not really. Ever seen those pictures of like world rulers after a few years or after a term? How much they age. It's a terrible burden, the karma you receive from your entire country from ruling them, when it's like Kali Yuga and you have to make so many awful compromises just to survive politically. Like they're like haggard, gray hairs, wrinkles. So it's no fun. It's no good for anybody. Better to make things dharmic. It's just there's a natural order to things. All right, Krishna. Wow, this is another one chapter week. I don't think we could do chapter 46. It's actually a Vrindavan chapter. Uddhava, Krishna's friend, is going to go back to Vrindavan. It's a very beautiful and important chapter. We can't do it in 11 minutes. So instead, we'll continue to take reflections.
So can I go? So listening to the reading about the school that they went to, it kind of was reminiscent for me of like when King Charles, they sent him away as royalty. They would send the young men or young women away to almost like a military type school, but then taught them all the fine arts and probably included spiritual or religion with it too. So it's almost like they were treated like something royalty would do. This wouldn't just be like a common person's school to go to. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Krishna is a kshatriya. He's being raised now by Vasudeva, and he's part of like a ruling family. So he's getting the best education money can buy. And at the same time, it's not exactly like that, because we'll see later, we may not get there, but as we'll see, as I've seen from reading the Krishna book way later, there's a reunion between Krishna and one of his friends from when they were students together. And that friend is a Brahmana who comes from no money at all. It's not actually on the basis of, it's not exactly a one-to-one correlation, because it's not like they're paying for their education. The teacher is not actually paid a wage, which is important. It's critical. They're not paid a wage because that means they cannot be bought or sold. If they don't agree with how you're conducting yourself as a student, you leave their ashram. You have to satisfy them, and it's all just a free giving and receiving. That I'm here to share knowledge. If you're a sincere student, you can come. You don't have to be like, I don't just teach the wealthy sons and the daughters and sons of wealthy people. It's not stratified like that. But as Prabhupada pointed out, there's a way in which every gentleman and lady would want their child to be, and would have the opportunity for the child to have some training. It's more just like those who had more interest in education and more interest in, like, for example, let's say you're a Brahmana and you have some children and they display the characteristics of being like Brahmins themselves, and where they want to understand how the way the world works and become teachers themselves and maybe gurus and be spiritually deep. They would have to go study for a long time. Whereas if you're like a farmer, right, the education of your farmer would be like your son, who's going to be a farmer because that's his nature and that's what he's going to plug into. It's not as long. So they wouldn't be as much of an elaborate education for them. They may not learn all the different arts and sciences and crafts and skills and how to rule and everything, but they would be qualified for their going back. So it's a whole thing, but it wasn't stratified by money in the same way.
No.
Because the Brahmins.
So if the child that was a farmer wanted to be a Brahmin, could he do that?
Yes, they could. Yes, they
Oh,
could.
okay.
It was not stratified by birth either. I read this verse yesterday. Yasya lalakshanam protam, pungso gurnavi pivyanchikam, yet anyatrapi drusheta tat tenaiva venirdishet. 7:11. I forget the verse number, but it's the last verse in that chapter. Canto 7, chapter 11, Srimad Bhagavatam. Narada Muni himself talks about this, that if one demonstrates the qualities of a certain position in life, a certain caste, they're to be understood as being of that nature and can be trained in that nature. It's very clear. That's like a silver bullet verse. That's why I've memorized it. There are a lot of verses like it, because like a lot of things, the social system of Vedic India has become stratified based on money, power, ruling class, different other reasons that don't actually have any bearing with what the wisdom culture says. Because generally what we find is that, especially traditionally, when the family culture is very strong, the community culture is very strong, and all the different traditional rituals were performed and different things, children were like their parents in their thinking a lot of the time. There were exceptions even then, but there's more exceptions now. But even then, when someone was like born of a kshatriya, like a ruling class, but they were like a Brahmin, they could become a Brahmin, because that's their nature. It's defined by their, as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, guna karma, their qualities and their activities, what they're inclined to do and what they want to do, what they're good at, and what their qualities are. So whole discussion we can have about that. But yeah, it's not. There's lateral and upward and downward movement. It's very free.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for your patience with me too.
That's what we're here for. Yeah, they're really good questions. Anyone want to have the last word?
No, I didn't want the last word. I just wanted to say, I thought the list of all of those wonderful things tell us how to be really well-rounded. It's an example of, if I do just narrowly go into one thing, I might be missing quite a bit. And it wasn't all you have to learn this difficult language. It was learning how to play, learning how to be so overjoyed by the material world. I think Tanya had mentioned this already, but that this is the joy of and the full expression of the material world. It's a wonderful set of things. Yeah.
While also getting the perspective to understand the world for what it is. So we don't just become like another automaton. Do it well, do it nicely, but do it dispassionately, do your duty, but also give your heart to what really matters spiritually. So you can have a beautiful, refined existence and live in a refined culture. The refined culture is full of people who have refined values. And go back to Godhead.
Yeah, but it also will help you to understand, I may not be able to do any of these things, but I have an appreciation for those who can. So
Exactly.
rather than looking at the differences, I look for similarities in people rather than pulling them down and judging them. Yeah.
In the Varnashrama system, the competition was within each group. Like artists would try to outperform artists, musicians would try to outperform musicians, but everyone appreciated everyone else. Now, as we see here, Krishna and Balaram perfected 64 different kinds of things in 64 days because they're God. They're like exceptional. They're like polymaths. They know all the languages, all the sciences, all the arts. But if someone can be good at one thing, that's great. And we were at a devotee friend's house, Bhakti and Allison, and she has apple trees. And we're talking about how many apples come from these trees, just so many apples. And I was thinking about how in a traditional culture, because like even a couple of apple trees is more than your entire family can possibly eat. Really, they're just overflowing with bounty. You trade 80% of your apples away, from an apple orchard, or 90%, and you get like all your other vegetables and fruits back in trade. Because like your friend over there is specializing in like, I don't know, broccoli. And they know broccoli really well. So you give them like the world's best apples and they give you the world's best broccoli. And you don't have to worry about how to make broccoli. You just got a friend who knows how to do it better than anybody. And next thing you know, you're not just eating apples anymore. And it's the same thing with all the arts. It's like, I'm just so many things I'm not good at, but we're very much encouraged to be like, wow, what a beautiful thing. We need artists. We need musicians. We need rulers. We need Brahmins. We need Vaishyas. We need people with a business sense. We need people taking care of the land and cows. And like, God help us if I have to do it. I'm not very good at it, but somebody should. And it's incredibly important. You know, there's a deep and abiding interdependence and respect in such a culture. One could argue that's really lacking now. Things being very stratified. We don't even know where our food comes from anymore. It's like really weird.
I have a question. I
Yeah.
don't know if I'm reading too deeply into this. Sometimes I get a little too analytical, but you know, I think it's always interesting when like things pop up in a chapter that kind of don't have something to do with everything else. And so I read into this to see like, so this whole chapter was called, you know, that the son is returned to his teacher.
Right.
And I kind of looked at this like, you know, Krishna and Balaram were returned, their sons who were returned to their parents, kind of. And then, you know, Vrindavan's going to get their sons back at some time because Krishna's promised it. So there's almost like this theme of like this love, this parental love kind of overshadowing, you know, the chapter. I don't know if I read too much into it, but I thought it was kind of a cool.
I think that's really beautiful. I think that's really nice. Yeah, and it happens on Krishna and Balaram's schedule. It's notable that when the teacher has like a boon to request from his students, he's smart enough to recognize that they're actually God. So he'll ask for something really significant. Well, my son died. Can you bring him back to life? So I mean, we can just take it like that with Krishna's mercy, anything is possible. And yeah, in all the relationships with Krishna, everyone is fully satisfied. So like in Vrindavan, they're satisfied. In Mathura, they're satisfied. Here, you know, there's a certain, I can speak from experience, there's a certain satisfaction as a teacher having qualified, eager, sincere students. And it's like, here is the apotheosis, the complete perfection of a student, Krishna and Balaram. Here they are. Here is the total perfection of being a teacher. You get to experience being a teacher for God. So here's Sandipani Muni experiencing like the deep pride and satisfaction and joy. Just look at the overflowing blessings he gives at the end. Like, oh my goodness, my boys, I could never have students better than you. I bless you that whatever you speak will be eternally true and always and increasingly relevant for everybody, because that's the nature of a teacher. They want to give and have it see that other people take it into their heart. Here's Krishna like nailing it. 64 days, he takes 64 topics and masters it. So in one realm or another, Krishna is actually perfectly reciprocating, you know? And practically, I would say, like, as a side effect, this teacher gets his son back. It's a beautiful thing. It's a wonderful thing, but it's really just like a bonus. Because he's a pure devotee of Krishna, that he happens to have the privilege of teaching Krishna, having lived in his ashram for, at the end it said a long time he was away from Mathura, at least 64 days. Great privilege. And yeah, side benefit, here's your son back. So yes, and. Howdy, Paul. We made it. It's 8 o'clock. Anything in the chat? Just thanks.
Oh.
Thank you for your attentive ears. Howdy, Paul. Well, Srila Prabhupada, Ki Jai. Shri Krishna and Balaram, the Supreme Students, Ki Jai. Sandipani Muni and the 64 Arts and Sciences, Ki Jai. Vancha kalpatarupyascha kripasutubhye vacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. So for this week, please read chapter 45 and read further if you'd like. And if you want more information, you can read into the 45th chapter of the 10th canto of Bhagavatam and reflect back on anything you heard. There's a lot of really good things in this chapter, especially the arts and sciences. There's a lot there. What stuck out for you from those, and like, you know, human society, having well-rounded character, different sciences, having refinement, aesthetic, those all were part of the conversation. There's a lot you can reflect around that. So please share. We'd love to hear in WhatsApp and on the YouTube comments. Howdy ball. Thanks everyone. Hare Krishna. See you soon.